Hey, show these bitches how you go. Show me how you go.
Something has just rocked the rap scene, and it's not simply another clickbait song or a diss tune. No is deeper and larger. A shocking revelation about a dark period in Papoose's history is rocking the nation. It has nothing to do with Remy. This has nothing to do with loyalty. Relates to an obscure relationship that existed long before the mixtape king was crowned. We're talking about street-level secrets, sealed court papers, and names we never imagined would be connected to Pap. Until now, before the love and hip-hop shine, before the black love branding, is where the twist lies. Was leaked by someone in his inner circle. Because of fear, not hatred. Cause Papoose may be associated with one of the most influential silent personalities in East Coast rap history if what is emerging is accurate. A name that everyone is terrified of, yet the industry never discusses. Goes beyond rap rumors. A conflict is going to break out. A whisper from the past was the first shot. Prepare yourself. There is far more depth to this narrative than anyone anticipated. Was the mixtape legend before Papoose became it. There was a darker side to the narrative before the love and hip-hop stardom, before putting Remy in jail and becoming the king of black love. And it begins in the middle of the 1990s, down in Brooklyn's Brownsville, where surviving meant keeping quiet, long before the cameras were there. And what you do next might make or ruin your life. A young papa was already making friends with people who weren't only interested in bars. Control was important to them. Sfemo Mackey was his true name. The ones in the know, but a quiet child who is smart. They consistently claimed that he was being cultivated, not by a record company, but by a man who is referred to as Uncle Larry, and whom almost nobody outside of Brooklyn has ever heard of. Despite not being blood relatives, they are respectfully referred to as uncles. He reportedly provided funding for half of the local underground, the rappers and the radio pluggers, while not wearing chains or showing his face at clubs. He also had a rule. Loyalty was crucial, and those who disobeyed him either vanished, or worse, were falsely accused. One of the only young guys Uncle Larry reportedly trusted was Papoose, who was still a teenager. Not for street cred, but for a more profound reason: calculation, memory, and intellect. Uncle Larry was not in need of firearms. Chess players were what he needed. Hay had a murderer's mind without ever setting off a gun. According to rumors, Larry's operation was linked to a significant bust that occurred in 1996. A name appeared in the documents. Mackey Shame? Here's the twist, though. On the same night that he was booked, he was freed. No time was wasted. No charges were brought. Then, somehow. Consequently, court documents were sealed. No media attention, no explanation. As if it had never occurred. So far, a distorted audio message began making the rounds in Reddit discussions and private group conversations last week. A person posing as a former soldier of Uncle Larry's? A filtered and muted voice conveyed a single unambiguous message. Not merely, a rapper Papoose's. Do you all believe he is loyal? He is devoted to authority? He stayed in the game. He just switched outfits. The audio concludes with a screen grab that is crisp enough to identify the face despite being blurry in black and white. Younger Papoose, about 17. Additionally, there is a federal booking ID knot and NYPD one next to the picture. This type of material is only available upon request. When AI and face recognition were used to evaluate the same photograph, the results showed 99.4% confirmation. It's true. Online responses have been conflicting. Some claim it's phony. Industry sabotage. A disgruntled adversary dropped a deepfake. However, insiders claim that was not the work of an outsider. came from within his social group, according to those. With knowledge of the matter, the leak was started by a person Papoose had trusted for more than 10 years. An ex-manager from his early days as a mixtape artist. First, significant distribution agreement. For years, the manager allegedly sat on voicemails, screenshots, and sealed files, waiting for the ideal opportunity. Is when things start to get chilly. Some people think is unrelated to beef, business, or retaliation. They think it's fright, fear that Uncle Larry, who has long been thought to be dead or abroad, may return. And if he does, everyone associated with him, especially those currently in the public eye, is at risk. He is married to a well-known rapper, organizes events, coaches musicians, and positions himself as the most devoted man in hip-hop, as, when used as a weapon, loyalty makes the ideal cover. And some people are beginning to question whether Papoose has always been hiding behind a mask. The most absurd aspect is that Remy Ma has remained silent. She also speaks loudly most of the time. She dropped Shether as Nicki approached her. She went live when blogs pulled her, been instructed not to talk or knows something. According to people close to them, they have been fighting behind closed doors, heavy. Additionally, Pat just abruptly missed a scheduled public engagement without providing an explanation. Something is changing. The supporters are divided. Leave Pap alone, some say. He has matured, changed, and merits admiration for maintaining his stability throughout the years. Some claim that the industry always acts in this way. Too late to conceal it. However, what would happen if this soil was never buried? What if everything we believed to be true about Papoose the mixtapes? The loyalty, the love story was actually based on a covert agreement struck when he was a young child with a lot of promise and no practical way out. That's the part that people don't want to confront. Sometimes being clean wasn't enough to get to the actual ones. They survived to get there. Furthermore, this might only be the start. The streets believed he had vanished, died, or been imprisoned. Uncle Larry, like all the other myths from the 90s that no one dared to discuss. There were no blogs with his name, it's just murmurs in basement studios, back alley barbershops, and prison cells. No headlines, Oose's power, not violence, that made him Brooklyn's boogeyman. He had the power to make rappers famous, or to make them disappear before their first song was out. And suddenly, some 30 years later, he was noticed. Not in New York, not even in Brooklyn, but in Atlanta. A fuzzy snapshot uploaded by a promoter who had no idea who he had taken the picture of was the first step. A private gathering in Buckhead with off-the-record meetings and primarily elderly industry execs. However, one individual was very noticeable. Bald head, deep scar, diamond pinky ring in the shape of a horseshoe close to his temple. Because someone commented, "Yo, that's Uncle Larry." The post went viral. The internet, a dot. The same thing began to be said by engineers, former battle rappers, and even a retired A&R. Larry's back, and Larry isn't here for peace if he's back. At that point, the Papoose rumors went into overdrive, and everyone began to doubt everything. Did Papoose remain in contact? Had he been secretly reporting to Larry for all these years? Did Uncle Larry provide covert funding for some of Pap's most recent business endeavors? Even worse, huh? Was there somebody whom Pap was shielding? Because what Pap did in the 1990s is no longer relevant. He's concealing something. Isn't that right? Claiming to have followed Uncle Larry about Atlanta. A private investigator claimed to have seen him meet with two guys in a black SUV. The license plates belonged to a limited liability business that was associated with a Newark, New Jersey property. The recording studio operated by Papoose's relative is located at the same address. The same studio was then broken into a few days after the information was released. Only one hard disk was lost. No money was taken and no equipment was missing. There is a cleaner, the house. Remy Ma, meanwhile, has not spoken. No stories, no interviews. However, one of her close friends shared a tweet that was not removed. If you lie about where your allegiance began, it isn't loyalty at all. Pap and Remy used to be the most untouchable pair in hip-hop. Fans are now questioning if she was ever informed of the truth about Pap's come-up, or whether she was kept in the dark like the rest of us. The paranoia really started to set in at this point. Pitch analysis confirmed that a leaked audio call was 90% likely to be Papoose. "I did what I had to do back then." He is heard to reply, "Not proud of it, but we're all in jeopardy if he returns." It's not a lyric. That is an admission. The streets are suddenly unsure of whether to ride for Papa or to be afraid of him, because if Uncle Larry returns, secrets will be revealed and maybe blood will pour. And Papa is the only person who could be aware of everything. The most important query at this time is, what did Uncle Larry provide Papa in the past? That father never made amends. You see, Larry never showed kindness. There was interest attached to each dollar he distributed. Additionally, Pap was owned, at least temporarily, if not permanently, if he was a sponsored star, according to some sources. In the early 2000s, Larry provided funding for a small mixtape press facility. Pap had a head start of 10,000 copies as a result. He never got out when the rest of the underground was fighting it out, but that leverage altered everything and may have forced him into a lifelong contract. What if, however, he had no desire to flee? What if the branding, image, success, and even the Remy plot were all purposefully planned as a shield, a means of erasing the past while remaining hidden? The obvious truth. Now fans are going further. The timelines don't match. Even during significant promotional campaigns, several of Pap's early colleagues said he would go missing for weeks at a time, according to an elderly radio DJ. Pap once abruptly canceled a freestyle recording with Funk Flex. He claimed to have a family emergency, but he was subsequently seen outside a well-known stash home. The most popular notion at the moment is that Galari isn't going back to her Papoose. Word has been that there is an outstanding due. Therefore, he is returning to collect Dot, as well as the studio's lost hard disk. Some claim that in addition to music, it also includes files, films, names, and places. The sole quotation for insurance.pap is insurance. Pap, the most terrifying aspect. There might be a riot in the streets if Papa gives it up. This is no longer simply about Pap. This concerns all those who profited from Pap's ascent. Industry executives, engineers, and producers may have unwittingly collaborated with a guy whose career was financed by a spirit. We're talking about possible RICO charges, silent indictments, and individuals turning on one another to avoid being caught in the crossfire if those papers leak. A man who never wished to become renowned for this was in the midst of it all. A man who established a reputation for loyalty only to have it now appear to be a cover-up. Additionally, Uncle Larry's face was recently shown on a leaked JFK airport security tape as of tonight. Now that he's back in New York, he's not hiding. It was unexpected by the hip-hop community. Not in this manner. Not from her. It's the fighter. Radati and the woman who once declared she would take a bullet for Papoose, Remy Ma, recently performed the unimaginable. She didn't do it live, but she turned Dot, didn't make a taunt, didn't cause any commotion. She used papers and did it discreetly. It began with a single documenta, signed, notarized statement that was released on Twitter by a media lawyer. Reminisce Mackie was the name at the bottom, and the substance was a formal legal separation request, not yet a divorce, but. There was a very loud pause because 3 phrases in that letter altered everything. The specifics of my husband's early ties were unknown to me. I didn't agree to be included in a story about government action to safeguard my child, business, endeavors, and brand. I'm removing myself right now. Boom! It was a bomb to the blogosphere. The fans were taken aback. A few were devastated. Did she know all along and just finally snap? began to inquire. However, the reality was more tangled behind the scenes, much messier. A dot. According to people close to Remy, the tension had been rising for some months, unanswered. Calls, covert meetings, and odd men showing up at gatherings and observing from the back corners. Above all, importantly, she addressed Pap about the hard drive that night. Someone who heard the altercation that night said that Remy yelled, "Why didn't you just tell me what was on it?" Pap gave a 5-word response. Rem, I was defending you." However, it was already too late. The drive had vanished. Even worse, a private government investigator conducted a sweep and located a backup copy in a locker rented under Pap's true name. What did it contain? Names, time stops, film, studio logs, and a single file with the name insurance _201 final. The video is 3 seconds long, handheld, blurry, and time-stamped. It shows a younger Papoose sitting in a dimly lit room and silently nodding while Uncle Larry talks off camera. Quote, "This is the deal," Larry says. "You give me your word and I give you the shove. You return if I ever call. No outs, no questions." Pap looks at the camera, nods, and declares, "I swear." Since that wasn't only an agreement, everything changed at that very time. A contract was in place, one bound in silence and allegiance. Remy also noticed it. She looked at the file. Insiders said that she sobbed for hours on end, squeezing, upset. That Pap had a history. She was incensed that he had based their future on deception. They had been mentoring new couples, hosting panels, preaching black love, and giving people the impression that they were unbreakable for years. And perhaps they were. Prior to the release of the video, Pap had claimed to be self-made. The world now knows, however, that he was constructed piece by piece by a guy who disappeared and then came back to gather. A dot. And because she heard that federal eyes were on her, Remy wasn't going to go down with him. The walls are closing in because Uncle Larry is back in New York and the hard drive is in the wrong hands. It's been days since Pap last blogged. Just silence, no shows, no tweets, no life. This is when it takes a sideways turn, though. A big streaming service insider said that Remy, not Pap, is the one being discussed about a documentary agreement. The narrative, her experience, her suffering, her survival, and above all, the betrayal. Because she's speaking the truth now. She is describing how she discovered letters concealed within a safe. She once witnessed a guy following them home. And she remembered how Pap would vanish for studio trips that never amounted to anything. Additionally, Pap just urged, "Don't look back." She is speaking the truth that Pap did not want to hear. By doing this, she is turning into the antagonist, in his tale and the protagonist of her own. The internet is fragmented. Posts from supporters of Pap are being removed. Clipped and sewn into parody are old interviews in which he extolled loyalty. Overnight, one video received 2 million views. Was he loyal or just afraid? Is the caption that appears at the conclusion. Although Remy hasn't yet made a public statement, the leak is obvious. She is done keeping him safe. Perhaps she is defending herself now since nobody is safe with Uncle Larry back and the hard drive in. Circulation due to government pressure. Not Remy Dot, not Papa Dot, not even those who believed they were only onlookers to this tale. Because this is more than just rap these days, it's survival. You have now heard everything, or at least what we are now permitted to say. A shadow figure reappeared from a locked past. The lady who once supported him and a hard drive that has the truth. Standing in opposition to him now, Papoose is no longer the exclusive topic of discussion. It concerns the price of devotion, the price of quiet, and the point at which a legacy begins to fall apart, not from adversaries or hatred, but from the truth. The worst aspect is that we may not fully understand everything yet, because Remy is actually getting ready to talk on camera if Uncle Larry is indeed back in the city. What we've seen thus far is only the opening chapter. If the entire missing footage is revealed, We now give it to you, the people who believed you were familiar. With the tale, was Papoose a soldier who never left the game or a casualty of the streets? Did Remy breach the code, or was it okay for her to leave? Above all they have created be destroyed, or will they be set free when the truth is revealed? Post your opinions in the comments section. Defend, expose, respond, and argue. This is not the end of the narrative. Additionally, loyalty is a weapon in this game. Additionally, the trigger may occasionally pull itself.